Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store and online. And now all mattresses are on sale, plus free home delivery during our Cyber Week sale. Limited time. For J.D. Power 2025 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I
it
felt
really
right.
but I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out
it was that golden moment.
because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Story Collider, where true personal stories about science help us explore just how weird, wonderful, and deeply human this world can be. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski, and today we're talking about attitude. Not the sassy kind, but how we show up in life. Both of our storytellers really highlight how the right perspective and a bit of determination can make all the difference when life throws challenges your way. Our first story comes from brain-computer interface pioneer Scott Imbrie. His story was recorded earlier this year at a show we produced in partnership with the Institute for Neuroscience, Neurotechnology, and Society at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's his story.
It was May 4th, 1985. I was laying in bed with my eyes closed, and I was hearing very unusual sounds that I wasn't familiar with at all. And I'm opening up my eyes and I'm looking up at the ceiling, and when I looked out the window, I could see the sun was just about to break the horizon. And as I'm looking around, nothing looked familiar to me. It's very confusing. But I really wasn't scared. And then all of a sudden there was a man standing at the end of the bed. And he grabbed a clipboard that was hanging there. He's looking down at it. And he looked up at me. And it was my doctor. He was there to tell me about my injuries. He told me I was unconscious for 5 days. And they were waiting for me to gain consciousness. He said I was a quadriplegic. He said I'd never again be able to use my hands or my arms. I didn't believe him. I was in denial. I was going to prove him wrong. I was in a fight for my life mode. This doctor, he had no bedside manner. He walked out of the room, and I thought to myself, good, I got rid of that asshole. A little while later, a nurse walks in carrying a tray of food. This woman just had the best, warmest eyes. You can tell she was a really caring person. And she sets the tray down next to me in the bed. And as I go to reach for the tray, because I was like really hungry, so I go to reach for the tray, I'm like, why can't I move? What's going on? I was like really super confused. And she looks over at me, she says, here, Scott, let me help you. And she starts to feed me. But no one's telling me what's going on. She's just feeding me. And then all of a sudden, there's my girlfriend come walking in the room, my girlfriend Patty. And I'm like, finally, someone I could trust. And she's got this look on her face, like trying to be happy and self-assured. But she had that look of like, something's going on, and she wasn't telling me. And I asked her, I'm like, Patty, where am I? What's going on? And she said to me, well, you got hurt and you're in the hospital. Now, she's being very vague with me, but that was okay because I trusted her. So I was 22 years old, and I had just bought a brand new Camaro. It was a beautiful blue IROC Z28. And I was really proud of myself because I just graduated from a technical school where I took computer electronics. And I graduated from the top of my class. I had the most beautiful girlfriend. She was like the love of my life. We always hung out together and never missed a day or a night being with each other. And I was like, why is no one telling me what's going on or what happened? And finally, I convinced Patty to tell me what happened. And she said, well, you wrecked your car. You left work and you're in an accident. And I'm like, well, so what? I'll fix it. And it wasn't going to be that easy because my life was forever changed. That car would never be fixed. I'm lucky I'm alive. So now this doctor, the one I didn't like, the one I didn't trust, this neurologist, he wants to do surgery on my neck. He wants to fuse C4, C5, and C6 together because he said there was no hope for me to recover from my spinal cord injury. And in my case, what was so bad about having the surgery was that my vertebrae were so crushed and my spinal cord was so swollen that the chance of doing unintended damage was very high. But I didn't care. I just wanted to get out of the hospital, and that was my goal. My goal to get out of the hospital faster was to have the surgery. And my mom and my family, the nurses, they were all really concerned about me having surgery. My mom brought in one of the most prominent neurologists in the country at the time. And between all these people, they were all pleading with me and the doctor not to do the surgery. But I wasn't going to listen to them. I was 22 years old. You know, I knew better. I just wanted to get out of the hospital. So the morning that the surgery was scheduled for, the doctor's partner comes in because he needs to get my final consent and permission to do this surgery. And he comes in, and this man had really super kind eyes. I felt like I could trust him for whatever reason. I don't know. And he just seemed like this wasn't the right decision to be making. So I said to him, I'm like, sir, if I were your son, what would you have me do? And he looked down at me and he said, well, I would send you down to Northwestern Memorial Hospital for the best medical care. I'm like, what? Can you tell me that again? And I heard him as plain as day, you know? And he's like, no, I won't say it again because I could get fired. Thank God for angels. I didn't end up having that surgery. I never needed it. The next day, I was transferred down to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and I laid in a striker bed in traction for the next 8 weeks. They had a 15-pound weight hanging from my head, which kept the bones in my neck separated so the vertebrae could heal all on their own. Thank God. Anyway, so about 4 weeks after my accident, I'm laying there flat on my back in the bed at Northwestern Memorial, and I'm trying to figure out how to do things for myself. Obviously, I'm a quadriplegic, so I can't move, or not very well anyways. But I'm trying to figure out how to change the channel on the TV without a remote control. Now, you see, the nurses, they consistently offered to change the channel for me. And as usual, I would refuse their help. Hence, they love me. They love my smile. They love my positive attitude. I just needed to figure out how to change that channel for myself. So I started out by figuring out how to pull my arms up to my chest sort of like the fetal position when you're laying flat on your back. My fist would be up underneath my chin. This would also help keep me warm. Then I started figuring out how to pull my left knee up in the air. So what I would do would slide my foot and bringing my heel to my butt. Since I couldn't do that with my right foot, my right knee, I would hook my left foot underneath my right foot and pull that knee up. So both my knees were like up in the air. Still determined to do more, I finally figured out how to wiggle my toes and point my toes on my left foot up towards my head. I'm like, I can figure this out, how to change this channel. So then I started reaching for the dial on the TV. Now the TV hung right above me and the bed. And so day by day, I would get a little closer to the dial on the TV. And then I finally got my fingers on the dial, but they kept slipping off and I didn't have the strength to do it. But finally, I changed the channel. I did it. I reached for the call button. I was yelling, "Nurse, nurse, nurse." She comes running in. "What, Scott? What happened?" "Look, I changed the channel. I finally did it." And she looks at me with such excitement. And the look in her eyes gave me the reassurance I needed. This was the day I decided and I figured I'm walking out of this hospital before too long. Boy, how exciting. All right, so, the thing that's so funny about it is none of this was easy. I just need to figure out how to do everything for myself. And, we all struggle. I'm no better or no worse than any of us. But I stayed determined. I was really pig-headed. Being pig-headed was a great tool to have. And I was self-assured, which gave me the determination that I could do anything. Anything was possible in this world as long as I stayed determined. A while later, they finally took me out of traction. They put me in a halo. Now, a halo is it's like a vest that's like strapped on your chest. And off of each shoulder, there's 2 bars going up to this ring that's around your head. Now, imagine, like if you look in the biblical tense, they'll have an angel or a saint, and they have a halo floating above a person's head. Well, my halo was this ring that was actually bolted to my head with 4 bolts. And what this did was it stabilized my head and my neck so I couldn't move it. And it also gave me mobility so I could start my therapy. So they transferred me to RIC, which is Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, to start my therapy. Now, this was both really exciting and really scary at the same time. I was excited because I'm like, finally, I'm getting out of this hospital. But then I was like thinking, what if I fail? What if I don't get any better? What if I can't walk again? Well, good thing for denial, because once again, it gave me the strength just to ignore all that. And I knew I would get better. So denial is a great tool for me. Now, when I went to RIC, I made new friends. My one friend, Dave, he was also quadriplegic. He and I, when we'd finish therapy every day, we would love to race each other up and down the halls in our wheelchairs. And somehow we would convince a nurse to sit in each of our laps while we raced down the halls. I don't know how we did it, but we all laughed all the way down the hall. It was the best thing. This also showed me to always live life to the fullest and be grateful for the small things. Then one day I finished therapy, and it was like a lull day for me. I was feeling a little sad. And I rolled into my room on the 7th floor at RIC. And it was the first time ever that I cried about my situation since my accident happened. And I was thinking to myself, why do bad things happen? What if what what if I end up in this wheelchair for the rest of my life? Fuck it. I'm just going to figure out a new way to do everything I love. And I wiped the tears from my eye. You see, I chose then, right at that very moment, to not be a victim. Never, ever will I be a victim. And you see, when I was growing up, my family and my society, they taught us to take ownership of everything that happens to us in life and to live life proudly and just figure out how to tough through all these hard situations. Well, that was a good lesson when I was young. Okay, so now I'm finishing up my therapy and everything. And today I get to help many, many, many people. I am blessed, forever blessed, because I get to help people. You see, in the United States, there's 180,000 people with tetraplegia. There are 58,000 people with major arm amputations. 4.5 years ago, I joined a study to help people with spinal cord injuries. The researchers at the University of Chicago used this device called brain-computer interface technology. And to enhance their research, they collaborate with the universities of Pittsburgh and Northwestern University. Now, the goal of this study is to restore motor control and sensory feedback to people who have lost function of a hand or a limb. Now, I get to control a robotic arm or hand with a device called the Utah array that's implanted on my brain. And this device is made by BlackRock Neurotechnology. And so now the hope of this study is to restore independence. Now, people who use this technology, they can control 2D control. Imagine controlling your mouse or a mouse pad. That's 2D control. Now think about all the things that we get to control using our phones and computers. So now if a person using this technology, they can become have a purpose in their life to be independent by using this technology. Think of how many things we use controlling our phones and computers. You can do just about anything in life. So this makes their world with unlimited opportunities. And when I joined this study, it has no physical benefit to me, but that's not why I joined it. That's not why I decided to have invasive brain surgery, having 4 electrodes implanted on my brain. I did this to help other people because we all have to return the blessings that we received, or otherwise you can't keep it. Today, I still wonder why bad things happen. And today I often wonder, is this the reason why? Is this why my neck was broken? Thank you, the Story Collider, and thanks to all of you.
Wow. That was such a powerful story about hope and determination, and I'm so glad Scott shared it with us. If you'd like to learn more about Scott or hear some of the other stories about people whose lives have been shaped by brain-computer interfaces, head to our website, storyclatter.org. Being a storyteller is just one way to make Storyclatter happen, but not everyone is comfortable in the spotlight, and that's okay. Because even behind the scenes, your support helps make sure Storyclatter can keep sharing stories like this. Now, more than ever, we need to amplify the voices of scientists and science communicators whose stories might otherwise go unheard. At Story Clatter, we believe that true personal stories can cut through the noise, bringing science to life, building trust, and helping people connect on a deeply human level. Our donors make that possible. They help us produce this podcast, share powerful stories, and keep the conversation going. If you believe in the power of science storytelling, please consider making a donation at storyclatter.org/donate. Most people give around $10 a month, and every tax-deductible contribution, big or small, helps us ensure that science has a voice. Thank you for helping us keep these stories alive. You've probably seen the headlines about cuts to foreign aid this year and the real concern they raise for people in some of the world's poorest communities. It's hard to know what's actually happening or how to help. GiveWell, this episode's sponsor, doesn't claim to have all the answers, but their team of researchers is analyzing the effects of these cuts in real time, identifying highly cost-effective ways to save and improve lives, and sharing what they learn for free. Over 18 years, GiveWell has directed more than $2.5 billion from 150,000 donors to the highest impact programs they found. Rigorous research suggests those donations have saved over 300,000 lives and improved millions more. You can explore all of GiveWell's transparent research at givewell.org. And the best part? Thanks to the donors who choose to sponsor their research, GiveWell doesn't take a cut from your tax-deductible donation to their recommended funds. If this is your first gift through GiveWell, you can have your donation matched up to $100 before the end of the year, or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org and pick podcast, and enter the Story Clatter at checkout. Make sure they know that you heard about GiveWell from the Story Clatter and get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org, code the Story Clatter to donate or find out more. Our next story is from certified therapeutic recreation specialist, burn survivor, speaker, and storyteller Emily Hespeler. Their story was recorded earlier this year at one of our go-to spots in New York, QED Astoria in Queens. Here's Emily.
Who's a baddie? I'm a baddie. Who's a baddie? I'm a baddie. I'm just repeating this little mantra that my roommate Emmy taught me back in Harlem around 4 years ago. You see, Emmy would ask me the same thing. She'd be like, Emily, who's a baddie? I just kind of laugh when she asked me. Eventually, though, she would always get me to scream, I'm a baddie. And I knew the term baddie from African-American women using it as a term of self-esteem, self-confidence, just looking good and feeling good about yourself. But when I asked Emmy, where'd you get this idea to ask me who's a baddie? She's like, dude, I don't really know, maybe from a song or something. But wherever she got it from, I decided to really use it. So every day those 4 years ago, I've had one hand on the doorknob about to leave my apartment, and the other part of my body was looking at the mirror directly across from the door. And I would say aloud, who's a baddie? And I would repeat back, I'm a baddie, before turning and walking out the door onto the streets of New York City with my head held just a little bit higher. But you see, this mantra came at a crucial point in my life. You see these scars I have on my body, I didn't have for the first 23 years of my life. I had a burn accident around 4.5 years ago. I was cooking on my gas stove. I reached above my gas stove to grab something out of the microwave above it, and my flowy shirt caught the flame below. I ended up getting around 30 burns on more than 30% of my body, spending around 2.5 months in the hospital, enduring these daily painful bandage changes, multiple skin graft surgeries, and tons of occupational and physical therapy. When I left the hospital and was finally able to return back to my apartment in Harlem, I feel like it was the first time I really got to look at myself. And I feel like I had to get to know this new vessel I was in, if you will. See, around this time, I remember talking to friends and family, and at moments I couldn't control, I would feel these sensations. It would feel like this uneasiness in my stomach, this tension in my throat, and this kind of buzzing in my head, and this glazed over look in my eyes. And as this was happening, I would feel like my soul would start to drift out of my physical body. It was like I was looking at myself from above. And these same out-of-body sensations would occur when I look at photos of myself from the first 23 years of my life. And I saw the physical differences in the photos. I didn't have scars on my body before. Yet it was something else that was causing these feelings for me. It was the fact that, in my mind, there was now two Emilys. There's Emily before my accident and the Emily after my accident. And I didn't know how to connect the two Emilys. I didn't know who I was in those moments. And, I tried to reflect back on who I was before my accident. I was a 23-year-old. I had just moved to New York City a year prior. I was doing this volunteer program, trying to live an intentional life, but at the same time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then halfway through my first year in New York City, COVID hit. And then I really didn't know what my future looked like. And then my accident happened. And again, I didn't know who this new Emily would be or how to connect back to who I was before my accident. And, my friends and family would try to tell me that it was okay, that it was normal to feel these things. And I even sought out therapy for a month, and the therapist was like, Emily, try to focus on all that you can be, right? And all that you might be. You're going back to work, you're seeing friends and family. Try to focus on those good things. When I tried to do that, I still couldn't shake these feelings I was having. So I knew I needed something else to help me get through that time. While I was searching for what that something would be, I was just going through these new motions as a burn survivor, right? I was putting lotion on the more than 30% of my body that was now burned to keep it from itching so much. And as someone who gets their calm and relaxation from going outside, I was now putting on loads of sunscreen and wearing these long sleeve sun protective shirts to keep my skin from further damage from the sun and things like heat exhaustion. And for the first time in my life, I was getting used to strangers coming up to me and asking, hey, what happened to you? And around this time, I remember opening my closet door in my bedroom in Harlem, and I saw these bandages. I took them out and held them in my hand, and I was going through some outpatient surgeries after my stay in the hospital. So they were from that, but the bandages themselves reminded me of the bandage changes I had to go through when I was in the hospital. And every day for 2.5 months, I would have these daily painful bandage changes in order to keep my skin clean and keep my wounds healing. And it was so painful that not even potent pain medication like fentanyl or morphine ever took away from the pain. And, the nurses would try to be as nice as they could, slowly taking off the bandages because, the 1, 2, 3 rip method isn't really a thing. And I tried to be a good patient in those moments, tried to not scream or beg them to stop because I knew that getting these bandage changes was one step closer to me leaving the hospital. But I knew in order to get through those bandage changes, I had to do something else. So what I decided to do was take myself out of my physical body and all the pain that I was feeling in the hospital, put myself back into past happy memories. And the memory I consistently put myself back into, I don't know why, it just came into my head during that time, was during this party I had in college. And there was just music playing, laughing, friends, strangers, everyone having a good time. At one point during the party, I'm like, guys, YOLO, you only live once. I've never crowd surfed before. I want to crowd surf. And they're like, all right, E-Dog, my nickname, we'll make it happen for you. So in my living room, in my college home, my friends, strangers, they all lift me up onto their hands. And I'm reaching towards the ceiling, trying to be let's go, let's go. But really, I look more like the wacky two-man outside the car dealership, just yeah, the one, arms flailing all around. But I make it from one end of the living room to the other, and they put me down. I'm just smiling ear to ear, and putting myself back into those moments allowed me to get through those painful bandage changes. But outside of the hospital, as I'm trying to get back to this new normal of life, I don't know how these out-of-body experiences are going to help me. I don't know how they'll help me until I decide to do this thing and sign up and start training for the New York City Marathon. See, I wanted to test my strength and didn't want to be defined by my accident. And the race day itself was going to be about a year and 1 month or so after my accident, but I had to start training in the months leading up to it. And up until this point, I didn't run more than 3 miles before, maybe the occasional 5-mile turkey trot on Thanksgiving. So I'm as I'm going out for my first training run, I'm just going to see how far I can go. And at this point, I'm still going through physical therapy, occupational therapy, and some outpatient surgery. So I'm just giving myself some grace here. And it's the early morning in Harlem as I go out for this training run and I see other runners. I'm like, okay, cool. There's going to be some other people joining me along this journey. And then I hit Central Park. And there's even more runners of all ages, all ability levels, just out there running alongside each other. And if y'all don't know Central Park, there's some hills, okay? Yeah. So I hit my first hill. I'm like, no big deal. I got this. I'm running up the hill. And then I hit the middle, and I start to hesitate and slow down a little bit. I just hit this wall where I'm like, I don't have to do this. I can just walk here walk home, take the subway, whatever. But then this thing starts to happen. And I'm like, who's a baddie? I'm a baddie, who's a baddie? I'm a baddie, who's a baddie? I'm a baddie. And as I'm repeating this mantra that my roommate taught me after my accident, I close my eyes on that hill in Central Park. As best I can, I take my soul out of my physical body. I try to put myself back into all the pain and discomfort I felt during those bandage changes in the hospital. And as I open my eyes on that hill in Central Park, I take a deep breath in. And I exhale. And I feel my breath moving all throughout my body. And I feel my heart beating. And I feel my feet on the ground. And I'm connected to myself. And I just keep running. And I run that day 8 miles, more than I ever have in my life before. I continue the training for the marathon, a lot of it in the summer, before work, after work, on the weekends. And one thing to know about burn survivors is in all these areas you see scars, we can't sweat in those areas. So it's kind of like my inner air conditioner is working at like a 30% less capacity. And imagine you're in a car on a hot summer day, right? And your air conditioner is broken. And you're sweating already, but you try to put the windows down to add like a little breeze, maybe cool down a little bit. But you never really stop feeling hot until you get out of that car and find like an air-conditioned area, maybe a shady spot. That's how I felt on my runs. I felt like I was literally a car overheating, pushing through this fatigue. My mantra now working overtime to help me get through those runs. But eventually I did make it, and I crossed the finish line of the New York City 2021 marathon. Thank you. And, I was feeling good on the race, people cheering all around me, really good energy. And I crossed the finish line, there's a sea of people, and I don't know, I just feel these tears like slowly rolling down my face and just feeling the magnitude of everything I just did and everything I've been through in the past year. And I'm searching for my friends and family that I knew were cheering me along the race. And finally, I spot my mom, and she sees me too. We started like slowly walking towards one another. She's holding flowers for me. We meet each other, and she holds her arms out, and I just kind of burrow into her arms, and she gives me a hug, and she's like, I love you, Emily, and I'm proud of you. And in those moments, I knew that my who's a baddie mantra could take me anywhere. Presently, I still ask myself the same question before I leave wherever I'm living. I look at myself in the mirror and I say, who's a baddie? Except now, most days, I know I am. I think we're all baddies here, right? So I want to ask you all one question. I'm going to ask, who's a baddie? And I need you to repeat back, I'm a baddie. Think you can do it? Yeah. All right, let's hear it. Who's a baddie? I'm a baddie. Who's a baddie? I'm a baddie. Last time, loud as you can. Who's a baddie? I'm a baddie. Woo! Thank you.
I'm digging Emily's mantra and will definitely be adopting it in my own day-to-day life. Who's a baddie? Emily's a baddie. And if you'd like to learn more about them, visit our website, storyclatter.org. If you want more Story Clatter content, check out our website or follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. If you want to come to one of our shows, start your own Story Clatter show in your community, or even learn how to tell your own science story, you can learn all about that on our website too. And if you enjoy this podcast, the best way to support us is simple. Tell a friend. Share an episode, introduce someone to Story Clatter, and help bring more people into the world of science storytelling. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Jen Chen, Nikisha Roberts-Washington, and Erin Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of the Story Clatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Mesa Salida, Kelly Beinel, Julio Chavez, and Tracy Segarra. Special thanks goes out to Story Clatter's board and team. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week, I'll be back with 2 amazing stories about that jarring moment when something you were always good at suddenly becomes hard. You won't want to miss them. Until next time, thanks so much for listening. Looking for a podcast to help you survive and actually thrive this holiday season? Check out All the Hacks. All the Hacks is hosted by Chris Hutchins, a financial optimizer who's been everywhere, literally. He's traveled to 60 plus countries, racked up millions of rewards points, and sold 2 companies. And if you're like me and planning to travel over the holidays, you've got to check out the Airport Lounge episode with Kevin Song. It was so useful. He breaks down exactly how to access the best lounges, even if you're not flying first class, shares underrated perks, and gives you the inside scoop on how to actually avoid crowded lounges. I'm definitely going to be using all these tips and tricks this season and anytime I travel. All the Hacks is full of practical tips you can start using right away. Plus, the guests are always great. You'll hear from people like skateboard legend Tony Hawk, 3-time Olympic gold medalist Kerry Walsh Jennings, and a whole roster of scientists and experts who are on top of their game. So do yourself a favor, search for All the Hacks. That's All the Hacks in your podcast app, hit follow, and start upgrading your life today.